These are the solutions to the practice test for Chapter 9. So let's take a look at the first problem here. It says, use the figure below to answer questions numbers 1 and 2. And so looking at this, we've got a figure that has different types of lines and rays and line segments and points. And so we have to understand some different concepts here. And looking at this one here, it says what type of figure is, and then ZX, and notice that it has a arrow right here. It's hard to see, but there's an arrow that goes right above this. And so whenever you've got a line that is above 2 points here, Z and X being the 2 points, and it has an arrow, that arrow symbolizes that it goes on forever. And so it's starting at Z, and since there's no arrow at Z, that means it stops at Z, or it starts at Z. And then it continues past X and on forever in that direction. So we call this a ray. Now, if it were a line would be like VX, and a line would have a hat on top that has arrows on both ends, signifying that it goes on forever towards the left and then towards the right. And let's take a look at the next question here. It says, what type of figure would be formed connecting points X and Y? So if I connected X here just to Y, what kind of figure is that? Well, we call that a line segment. And so a segment is a portion of something. And so that's what we have, is a portion of the line. The line would continue on forever to the right of Y and to the left of X. But because it just starts at X and goes to Y, and if I was to write that, it would look like this, XY with just a hat on top without arrows at the ends. That would be the line segment. Now it could have just a point as well. A point is just a location in space, like here is point Y. And typically you just have a point with a point right there like they had here, and then just a letter to represent where that location is or what that location is called. Let's take a look at the next one here. Use the figure below for 3 and 5, for 3 through 5. What type of angle is CBE? So C to B to E. Now notice this symbol right here. This symbol right here is important. That symbol signifies we have a right angle. And so that tells us that this symbol here means that it's a 90-degree angle. So we would say this is a right angle. That's the type of angle that is. Now there are other types of angles, and so maybe we'll be answering those in the next few questions. If not, we'll go over them. What type of angle is formed by adding together ABE and CBE? Now remember, the middle letter represents where it changes direction, where the corner is, kind of like this little angle symbol here. That would be the B value. So let's take a look at it. ABE. Well, that's a right angle. That's a right angle right here. So this one's 90 degrees. We know that. Now let's take a look at this next one here. CBE. CBE. Well, that's another 90-degree angle. Well, if we have two 90-degree angles, those add to make 180 degrees. So what do we call that? Well, the type of angle it is a straight angle. So that's another type. Let's see what the next one says. Well, there are other types of angles besides right and straight angles. A right angle is the 90-degree angle. Straight angle is 180 degrees. Well, we also have acute angles. And acute are smaller. So we have something that's smaller than 90 degrees. So this little points towards the acute, so this means it's smaller or less than 90 degrees. Or we have obtuse. And so obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees. So those were the other types that we could have had, but they didn't have those as questions. Maybe they will later on, we'll see. Next question asks us to name two complementary angles. Well, complementary means that they sum, the angles sum to 90 degrees. So we have to find two angles that make 90 degrees. Well, right here we have a right angle. So CBE is a right angle. So we need to find the two angles that add to make CBE. Well, one of those is this one here, EBD. So EBD. to B to D. Notice that B is where the corner is. So I'm going to say angle EBD, and I also have another one, and that adds to make it, and I'm going to go with DBC. So angle DBC. So that's one way of saying it. We could have also gone an opposite way. You could have said CBD and DBE. That would be the same thing. As long as B is in the center, you're good to go. So let's take a look at our next one here. Use the figure below for 6 through 8. So name two adjacent angles. Adjacent means they share one side. One side. So we need two angles that share a side. So there's more than one way to come up with an answer here. We could say a possible answer would be CBD, so angle CB and D, and then it also has to share a side. So I'm going to have it share this side right here, so DBF, so angle DBF. So basically what you need when you're sharing a side is you need two letters that are right next to each other. Notice how B and D are right next to each other, and D and B are right next to each other. As long as you have this, where you've got two letters next to each other, that means that is the side that is shared. Could also have like DBF and FBE. They share FB. Or you could have said FBE and EBA. See, they would share EB. So a couple of different variations of answers there. So you have to watch for yours. So yours is a multiple choice test. So there'll only be one answer here for you to choose. And find the one that has the letters that are next to each other that are the same, and that will be the two adjacent sides. What is the measure of ABE? Well, this only has one answer. So ABE. Well, we know that this is a right angle here. So these two together they make 90 degrees. Well, this is 45. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 45 and add it to 90 degrees. Well, when I add those two numbers together, I get 135 degrees. Well, that's the angle from EBC. That's EBC. So I'm missing this angle. Well, a straight angle, if it just goes straight across, is 180. And so that's this angle right here. And so what I want to do is I want to find out what the difference is between those two. So I'm going to subtract 135 from 180. Now, when you do that, make sure you borrow. That's the common mistake people will make, is not borrowing. So we have 45 degrees. So that is the measure of ABE. What is the measure of EBC? Let's take a look at it. EBC. Well, that's 90 degrees. EBD is 90 degrees and 45 degrees. So it's 90 degrees plus the 45 degrees, and that equals 135. Well, actually, so we really needed to be able to find this before we found number 7. So question 7 answered question 8. Well, here I have to name a figure. Well, what kind of polygon is this? Polygon means many-sided angled, or many-angled figure here. And this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So 5 sides is called a pentagon. So you also have to remember some other ones. Remember, if it's a 6-sided, it's a hexagon. Heptagon for 7-sided. And an octagon for 8-sided. Those are some familiar ones. You see, and here's a 4-sided one. Well, here we only have the 4 sides. So this one we call a quadrilateral. So remember, we have a 4-sided quadrilateral, 3-sided triangle, so you just got to remember all those different ones. Well, take a look at the next part for the rest of the problems.